A professional kickboxer hit a girl right in the ring. No one said a word. But when Ronda Rousey came into the arena, everyone got very quiet. Subscribe to the channel and write in the comments where you are watching this video from. The lights of the Grand Arena in Dubai were super bright, shining like a big crown made of fire. They danced on the shiny floor and on huge screens above the people, like fake stars in the sky. Red and gold lights made the seats glow, and loud music with lots of bass made the ground shake. People sitting close to the stage could feel the beat in their bones. The whole place looked amazing. Banners with company names hung from the roof. Cool 3D pictures popped up on the walls, and sponsor names moved across digital signs like they owned the place. Everything about the arena was big, flashy, and full of money. This was going to be a night no one would forget. Above all the lights and noise, the voice of the announcer rang out, loud and powerful, speaking in English and Arabic. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for tonight's special fight. This will be a show like no other, a fight full of skill, fairness, and real action. The crowd cheered, though some people looked unsure. They had heard the rumors about who was going to fight. Some leaned forward, excited. Others looked worried. Behind the stage, behind a fancy curtain and under flickering lights, Layla fixed the strap on her gloves for the third time. Her fingers were shaking, even though she tried to stay calm. She was 20 years old, the best in her country, Morocco. She was fast and smart in the ring. But this night was bigger than anything she had done before. People all over the world would see her. If she did well, they'd remember her. If she lost badly, they'd remember that too. The locker room was quiet. Just the sound of TV screens and her coach talking softly. Her coach's name was Haft. He had trained her since she was 13. He sat on a bench, eyes closed, saying a silent prayer. When he opened his eyes, his voice was rough but kind. This fight isn't about him. It's about the people watching, the little girls back home. Show them you're strong. Show them we belong here too. Layla nodded. She didn't say a word. She tied the belt of her white GI and thought about all her fight moves like flipping through flashcards. But deep inside, she felt nervous. Not scared for herself. Scared because of him. Dmitry Vashenkov. That name was famous. He was 38 years old, born in Russia. Everyone in the fighting knew about him. He was big, strong, and scary. He was almost 2 meters tall and weighed over 100 kilos. He looked more like a giant soldier than a fighter. His face had lots of scars from many fights. His eyes looked cold, like he didn't care. Dmitry didn't like the idea of women fighting. And tonight, he was fighting her. Dmitry sat in his private room with helpers and 2 laughing guys. He drank a protein shake while a woman put oil on his arms. They're really making me fight a girl, he laughed. What's next, a kid? The room laughed, a little nervous. One helper said, just make it look good, champ. Don't go too hard. Dmitry winked. I'll make it unforgettable. Soon, both fighters were called to the hallway before going out. Layla stood under a big archway. Her heart was beating loud. The music played and the crowd clapped. Layla Nadir of Morocco, the announcer said. People cheered politely. She walked out, calm and focused. She looked straight at the mat, not at the crowd. This wasn't about fame. This was about being there. Then the lights turned red. Flames shot up at the sides of the walkway. The screen showed scary clips of knockouts, broken noses, and people lying hurt on the ground. Big gold letters showed the name, Dmitry Vashenkov. Heavy metal music blasted. The crowd screamed. Dmitry walked out wearing a black GI with gold stripes and a dark red belt. His muscles were huge. His smile looked wild. He walked slowly, enjoying the cheers. He blew silly kisses and flexed his arms. Layla stood on the mat, bowing like a respectful fighter. Dmitry walked in circles like a show-off. Then he looked at her, didn't bow, and winked. The referee stood between them and said, remember, this is just a demo. Full contact, but keep it safe. You're pros. Show real skills. Dmitry gave a thumbs up. Sure, boss, he said, smiling like it was a joke. The bell rang. The match began. Layla got ready, bouncing on her feet, hands up, breathing steady. She thought about what Coach Haft said. Breathe right. Think right. Fight right. Dmitri didn't get ready. He just stood there, arms down, moving a little. Then, like a wild animal, he jumped forward. He kicked straight at her chest. Layla moved just in time, using her arm to block. She slid back 2 steps. The crowd gasped. She got back into position. Her heart beat faster. That kick wasn't soft, it was hard, not like a demo at all. Dmitri smiled. Oops, he mouthed. He came at her again, right hook fast. She ducked, spun, and hit him lightly in the body. Some people clapped. Dmitri's smile disappeared. He looked angry. He brought up his hands and started fighting for real. He used jabs, crosses, low kicks, elbows. It wasn't a show anymore. He was trying hard to win hard. Layla did her best, dodging, blocking, countering. But his hits were strong, very strong. She started to get tired. Her breathing got heavy. Her feet slowed down. Then it happened. Dmitri faked a punch. She moved to the side. But he spun fast and kicked high, right to her head. His foot hit her hard. Layla saw stars. She fell to the mat. She didn't feel the ground. She didn't move. Her arms and legs were floppy. Her eyes closed. The whole arena went quiet. Dmitri stood over her. Then he sat on her. He raised his fist and punched her in the face. Then again. And again. Blood came from her mouth after the 3rd punch. The referee ran over yelling, but Dmitri pushed him away. People in the crowd screamed. Some filmed with their phones. Some turned away. Dmitri kept punching. Over and over. Security ran toward the mat. But they were scared. No one stopped him. The crowd didn't cheer anymore. Some started to shout, "Stop the fight." Others just whispered the same thing. "Where is someone to stop this?" Then from the front row, a woman in black stood up. She didn't say anything. She walked slowly toward the ring, her eyes on Layla. It was Ronda Rousey. The grand arena was silent, like a church with no one singing. Layla lay still, her white outfit turning red from the blood. Her chest moved a little, breathing weakly. Cameras kept showing everything. Dmitri's fist was still closed, red with blood. He smiled at the camera, like he had done something fun. But Layla wasn't a toy or a game. She was a person. A fighter. Someone with dreams. The referee tried again, scared, saying, "Stop." Dmitri gave him a look that made him freeze. 2 security men came forward, but they didn't step in. They just looked at each other, unsure. The announcer's voice came back. Ladies and gentlemen, this is, a controlled show." His voice cracked and stopped. The crowd murmured. People in the upper seats gasped. Phones glowed everywhere. First dozens, then hundreds, recording everything. No one knew if this was part of the show. Has it gone too far? Was this still just for fun? Or had something real and scary happened? A girl sitting in the 3rd row, maybe 10 years old, held her dad's arm tightly. Her face was pale. "Daddy," she whispered. "Why is he still hurting her?" Her dad didn't answer. He couldn't. In the ring, Dmitri stood up at last. He stretched his arms out wide like he had just won. He laughed, loud and mean. "This is your fighter," he yelled. "This is who you send to fight me? What a joke." He pointed at Layla's still body with his foot like she was nothing. He even spit on the ground next to her head. The crowd didn't cheer. Some people booed. Some yelled mean things. But most were quiet. The whole place started to feel strange and wrong. People felt embarrassed. But still, no one moved. Not the people running the event, not the security guards, not the announcers hiding behind glass. It felt like a monster had been let loose, and nobody knew how to stop it. Down in the front row, hidden in the dark, Ronda Rousey stood up. She didn't flinch when Dmitri kicked. She didn't gasp when Layla's lips started bleeding. She just stood there, calm, hands together, face serious. She wore plain black clothes. Her hair was tied tight. No cameras followed her. No reporters talked to her. She wasn't part of the show. She was something else. When she stood up, the man sitting next to her quickly stepped aside. She walked slowly through the row, like a shadow. Her eyes stayed on the ring. One of the camera people saw her and tried to follow. The other stayed still. Security didn't stop her. They knew who she was. Everyone did. Dmitry saw someone moving and thought it was just a helper or a doctor. But when he saw who it really was, when he saw how she walked, how she stood, his smile stopped. He laughed once, short and fake. "No way," he said. "Is this part of the show now?" Ronda didn't say anything. She walked past the referee, past the officials, straight to Layla. Layla wasn't moving. Ronda bent down and gently checked her pulse. She brushed Layla's hair out of her face with a soft touch. Then Ronda stood up and faced Dmitry. The arena wasn't silent now. It was holding its breath. Dmitry smiled again, but it looked fake now. He opened his arms and spoke to the crowd with a sneer. "Oh look," he said. "The famous Ronda, here to protect. What? Girl power." He pointed at his head and laughed. "This isn't UFC, sweetie. I fight for real." Still, Ronda didn't speak. She just stood there, arms at her sides, breathing steady. Her face was calm. She didn't move fast. She didn't look angry. But something about her was strong, like a mountain deciding whether to fall or not. People in the crowd started whispering. Some shouted her name. Others pulled out their phones to film. Dmitry licked his lips and walked forward. "What's wrong? Can't talk." He looked at the nearest camera. "Make sure you film this. I'm going to beat 2 girls today. One is broken. The other will be 2. Ronda finally took one step forward. Now she was standing between Dmitry and Layla. The referee looked confused. He didn't know what to do. He looked to the event boss, who stood frozen, not speaking into his headset. No one was in charge anymore. Dmitry shrugged and looked around. Then he raised his arms and shouted, "Fine. She wants to fight? I'll fight her. Let's do this." The crowd got loud. Some people were angry, some scared, and some just excited. Everything felt out of control. The announcer's voice came back, shaky and unsure. Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we're having a surprise, moment. Please stay in your seats." But people were already standing. Security leaned forward, ready to jump in. One event worker stepped close to the mat, but stopped when Ronda raised her hand. She didn't raise it to fight. She just held it out, flat, asking everyone to give her space. Dmitry was stretching his neck, bouncing on his toes. He still thought this was just a show. He didn't yet understand what was about to happen. Ronda took off her black jacket and folded it carefully. She placed it just outside the mat. Then she turned to Layla, gently touched her shoulder, and the cameras caught her lips saying 2 quiet words. "I'm here." Then she turned to Dmitry and took her stance. She didn't crouch or pose. She stood like someone who had practiced for years. Someone who had failed and won and trained every day. Dmitry hesitated for 1 second. Just long enough for everyone watching to feel it. This wasn't a show anymore. This was something real. Ronda Rousey was here. Dmitry walked around her like a hunter. But something in his walk had changed. He didn't feel as sure anymore. His steps were too heavy, like he was trying to stomp out his fear. Across from him, Ronda didn't move. She didn't look scared or angry. She was calm, like a rock in a fast river. Her eyes followed him quietly. Her breathing was even. Her face showed nothing. The crowd stopped shouting. The air felt thick, like something big was about to happen. No one looked away. Even the workers backstage stopped talking into their mics. This wasn't a game anymore. It was a moment of truth. Dmitry snorted and rolled his neck. He stretched out his arms again. "Come on then," he yelled up at the roof. "Let's give them a story." Ronda didn't answer. She just took one calm step forward and planted her foot. Dmitry laughed again, but it didn't sound real. He bounced once, twice, then ran forward fast. He threw a punch and a kick. He was showing off, trying to scare her. But his punch hit only air. His kick missed too. Ronda turned gently, her foot sliding on the mat like silk. She didn't move back. She didn't punch back. She just wasn't there anymore. The crowd gasped. Dmitry turned quickly, annoyed. He came at her again, faster this time. He threw a low punch, then a high hook, then spun around with his arm wide. He was trying to confuse her. But she ducked, turned, and let his hand fly past her. Her steps were clean, like a dancer. She didn't hit him. She didn't play his game. And that made him nervous. People watching saw something strange. This wasn't two fighters fighting. This was one person falling apart. Every time Dmitry missed, it hurt his pride. Every time Ronda dodged, it showed the truth. He wasn't in control. Dmitry's jaw got tight. His moves got sharper, but also messier. "Fight back," he yelled. "Or are you just here to dance?" Still, she said nothing. She didn't need to. She stepped back a little, then slid to the side. Her hand brushed his wrist, so light it looked like an accident. But it was enough. He lost his balance for a second. He caught himself, stumbled, turned, and growled. The crowd started to change. At first, they were having fun. Then they felt weird. Now, they were waking up. They weren't watching a fight. They were watching a man come apart. Dmitry screamed and charged like a bull. He bent low, trying to tackle her with all his weight. But Ronda stepped aside again, turning her hips and gently guiding him away. He fell past her, catching himself with his hands. Now he was angry for real. Sweat poured down his face. His neck bulged with effort. Behind them, Layla was still lying down. The doctors were helping her. One held a tablet showing the fight. Layla's face was hurt and her arm in a sling. But her eyes were open, watching. She saw the woman standing where she no longer could. Dmitry turned again, breathing hard. His tough guy act was falling apart. Now he was yelling rude things. Loud and mean. He tried to make Ronda mad. He said her glory days were over. He called her names. He said this wasn't Hollywood. But Ronda didn't move. She didn't need to. And everyone knew this was almost over. She didn't move. He walked closer and pointed his finger at her face. "Come on, legend. Hit me. Or are you too old and scared?" Ronda didn't say anything. She just stood still and calm. Dmitry spat on the floor near her feet. The people watching made a sound like, "Oh." Then Ronda moved. Just one step. That was all. Dmitry threw a big punch. He used that same punch to knock out two other fighters before. It was his favorite move. He was sure it would win the fight. But Ronda didn't move in a big circle like his punch. She went under it, ducked low, and walked past him like a soft breeze. Her shoulder touched his ribs as she went by, and with a little push on his back, she made him fall forward. He spun around, trying to stand right, but his face looked confused. He didn't know what was going on. Ronda knew. Dmitry tried again, this time swinging fast and wild. Ronda blocked one punch with her arm, stepped away from a kick, and tapped his ankle with her foot. He lost his balance and fell again. This time, he got up more slowly. In the stands, kids watched without saying a word. Grown-ups looked serious. Some girls in the front row were holding hands without even knowing it. Everyone was very quiet. Dmitry growled like an angry animal. He whispered bad words. He looked at the crowd and the cameras. But now, no one was looking at him. They were all looking at Ronda. The silence wasn't empty. It felt full, like something big was happening. In the room where the show was controlled, no one was talking. The director had his headphones around his neck, but forgot about them. He had planned to say things like sponsors and stats and cool facts, but now all those words felt silly. Dmitry hit again, first a pretend punch, then a spinning elbow. Ronda didn't even blink. She ducked the elbow and got really close to him. Their faces were almost touching. She looked into his eyes, not angry, not mad. Just clear. She stepped back and let him swing again. He missed. Dmitry screamed. He couldn't hit her. He couldn't figure out her pattern, because she didn't have one. She wasn't trying to win. She was letting him lose. Behind the curtain, Layla's breath caught in her throat. A tear rolled down her face, but her lips whispered a tiny word. She understood now. This wasn't just fighting. It meant something. Dmitry ran at Ronda again. This time he tried to sweep her legs and throw her. But Ronda didn't move away. She stepped in, grabbed his shirt, turned her body, and flipped him onto the mat. The people watching gasped, then cheered loudly. Dmitry hit the ground hard. He groaned and tried to stand, but Ronda didn't rush him. She gave him space. He looked at her with a new look, not fear, not respect, just confusion. Like someone had taken his lines from a play and given him new ones he didn't know. He stood up slowly. Ronda was ready, but not attacking. Just standing there. Everyone watching understood. Even if Dmitry didn't. She wasn't there to win. She was there to stop a show that had gone on too long. Dmitry tried again. He used the same move that hurt Layla, grabbing the arm and twisting it. But Ronda was already moving. She stepped into him, turned with him, and threw him down again. This time, she was on top. She had his arm in the same hold he used to hurt Layla. She was holding it tight. Dmitry wiggled, trying to escape. Ronda tightened her grip just a little. Crack. A loud sound filled the air. Dmitry screamed and tapped the mat, asking her to stop. She let go. He curled up, holding his arm. Medics ran in. Ronda just stood still, breathing slowly. Her face was calm. The camera zoomed in. Everyone was watching. But Ronda didn't raise her fists or smile. She looked at the crowd, at Layla, and at Dmitry on the mat. Then she turned and walked away. The air in the big room felt different. Dmitry was not screaming like a strong fighter. It sounded like a man who didn't know what to do anymore. He had trained so hard to be tough. But in one moment, everything he believed about himself broke apart. Ronda didn't yell. She didn't brag. She didn't need to win. She had already done what she came for. Now she stood above him. Not like a winner. Not proud. Just quiet. The crowd stayed frozen. No one clapped. Since the crack sound, they had all been silent. It wasn't the kind of fight that made people cheer. It was careful, smart, and made people think. Medics ran to help Dmitry. One of them looked up at Ronda like they expected her to say sorry. But she didn't. She just stepped back and watched. Dmitry had been so mean earlier, laughing when Layla got hurt. Now, he was being carried away like a crumpled piece of paper. The cameras saw everything, his tears, his pain, his shaking fingers. He tried to stand up once, because he didn't want to look weak. But his body couldn't do it. The crowd saw that too. A man who used to seem big and strong now looked small. He had been beaten, not by pain, but by the truth. As he was rolled away, his head turned. He saw Ronda standing at the edge of the mat. She picked up her jacket and shook off the dust. She moved slowly and calmly. The lights above her looked softer, like the arena itself understood what had just happened. Layla was lying on a bed behind the curtain. A medic turned a small screen so she could see the fight. She had watched the whole thing. Her arm hurt, and her ribs ached. But her chest felt warm with something new, not pain but hope. She whispered one word, Ronda. Ronda hadn't spoken during the whole match. But her moves had said everything. The people watching felt it too. The silence in the arena began to change. At first, it was just quiet. Then, people started to stand. Hands came together. Not loud clapping, but soft, slow claps. Like rain tapping on a window. Ronda didn't turn to look at them. She looked at the tunnel where Layla was being taken. She watched until Layla disappeared. Only then did she look at the crowd. She didn't bow. She didn't smile. She just looked at them. At that moment, they weren't looking at a fighter. They were looking in the mirror. A reflection of who they had let themselves become. The crowd had once cheered when Dmitry hurt Layla. Now they were quiet. Sad. Ashamed. And the woman they thought was too old had shown them something stronger than fame, honor. The announcer had been silent for 15 minutes. Now he spoke, but not in a loud voice. His voice was soft and respectful. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in recognizing the spirit of martial arts. He didn't say her name. He didn't need to. Ronda left the mat. The backstage was full of shouting. People were running around. Security was confused. Headphones buzzed with different ideas. The team didn't know what to do. They were trying to figure out how to explain what had happened, to the news, to sponsors, to the internet. In the medical room, Layla's coach stood by her bed. His face was tired. He felt bad. He had told her it would be safe, that it would be fair. But it wasn't. He had watched her get hurt by a man who didn't care. A man who thought he owned the mat. Then Ronda walked in. The doctor stepped aside without saying a word. She walked over to Layla. She didn't walk slowly or fancy. She just came over because she meant to. She put her hand gently on Layla's shoulder. Layla turned her head. Her eyes were shiny, like she was about to cry. "I messed up," she whispered. Ronda shook her head. It was a small shake, but it meant no in a big way. "No," Ronda said. "You stayed strong." Layla's lips wobbled, but she didn't say anything else. She didn't need to. She just looked at Ronda, and they both knew what the truth was. Outside, people were putting Dmitry in an ambulance. His arm was wrapped up tight. His face was covered with a hood, but a camera still showed his jaw tight and his eyes full of surprise. He was remembering the moment when he lost. He felt it happening even before it happened. He knew it was fair, even before he screamed. No one talked to him. The doctors and helpers were quiet. They did their jobs fast, but it was very, very quiet. In the room where they showed the fight on screens, the same moment kept playing over and over again. The turn, the control, the scream, the stop. Online, the video was being watched by a lot of people. Big words showed up on news screens, not a win, but a wake-up. People who used to shout and cheer now spoke quietly. Companies who showed off the fight didn't want to be part of it anymore. They were writing notes to say sorry. But no one could change what had happened. The picture of Ronda kneeling next to Layla, then standing alone on the mat, was now very famous. Not because it was scary. Not because it was revenge. But because it showed someone being careful and brave. Later that night, after all the people were gone, the arena was quiet. Workers rolled up wires and swept shiny paper that never got used. The mat was still there. You could still see small marks of blood and dust. But it was peaceful now. The kind of quiet that comes after a big storm, not because nothing is there, but because everything just happened. In a small room, away from the noise, Ronda sat with Layla and her coach. Nobody was talking. No big speeches. Just quiet. Because what happened couldn't be taken back. What people saw couldn't be unseen. Layla sat up, her arm resting on pillows. She looked at her coach and said very softly, "I will fight again." Her coach didn't say anything, but he nodded, and his eyes were wet. Ronda smiled at Layla. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a proud one. "You never gave up," she said. "That's what matters." Outside, the city lights sparkled in the sky. The arena was still there, big and dark. But it wasn't just a place for shows anymore. Now, it meant something more. It held a lesson people wouldn't forget. Later, people would try to explain what happened, give it names, try to own it. But the ones who were there, who felt it, who saw Dmitry lose not from being hit, but because Ronda stayed calm and strong, they knew the truth. That night, someone stood up when no one else did. And that changed everything. The streets outside the big arena were quieter than usual. Normally, fans would be yelling, laughing, sharing snacks, and talking about the fight. But tonight, people walked slowly, in small groups. They weren't mad. They weren't super happy. They were thinking. Their faces looked serious, like after something big had happened. The arena lights still blinked. Giant screens still showed ads, but nobody was watching. One screen showed a slow-motion video again and again, Ronda turning Dmitry's grip, the clean move, the quiet moment before he screamed, and the gentle let go. Inside, the cleanup team moved quietly, like ghosts. Mats were rolled up. Banners were taken down. The smell of sweat and excitement was being replaced by cleaner smells. Most of the staff had gone home. A few were still packing papers and scripts. A clipboard with the title demonstration fight, Dmitry versus Layla, was left on a chair. Someone had written 2 words on it before walking away. She stood. In a long hallway under the arena, Ronda walked alone. Her boots made soft sounds on the floor. She wore a black jacket, now dirty with chalk and a small line of blood from when she helped Layla. She didn't clean it off. The moment still lived in her body, in her quiet steps. She didn't rush. She walked like someone who did the right thing and didn't need anything else. She walked past the tunnel where the doctors had run earlier. Quiet voices came from behind closed doors. People were talking about insurance, news stories, and if more shows should be cancelled. No one stopped Ronda. They moved aside, even if they didn't know why. In the medical room, Layla sat up. Her face was pale. Her lips were dry, but her eyes were bright. She watched a TV showing Dimitri being wheeled away. His face looked confused and hurt. She didn't look scared. She looked at her own arm, now in a brace, and tried to move her fingers. They moved, slow and painful, but they moved. Her coach sat next to her. He had taken off his jacket. His shirt was wet with sweat. He had his arms crossed and looked very serious. He hadn't said anything since the fight. He felt guilty, not because Layla failed, but because he had trusted the rules to keep her safe. He had believed being fair would be enough. When Ronda walked in, the room felt different. Layla looked up. Her back sat straighter, not to be proper, but because she just felt that way. Ronda came close, pulled up a chair, and sat. They didn't talk right away. Ronda looked at Layla's arm, then her face. She wasn't looking at the hurt. She was looking for the truth inside. "You didn't fail," Ronda said softly. Layla's lips shook. She tried to speak, but her voice caught. "I fell," she whispered. Ronda leaned a little closer. Her voice stayed quiet but strong. "You stayed up longer than most people could. You walked into that match not knowing how far he would go. And still you went." Tears filled Layla's eyes, but she kept looking at Ronda. "I couldn't stop him," she said. "You didn't need to," Ronda said. "That's not what it was about." Layla breathed out slowly. Her hand shook. Ronda placed her hand on top of hers. "You were strong," she said. "And you will be even stronger." Something passed between them. Not like one person giving something to another, but like both of them knowing the same thing. Layla had done something brave. She had risked something big. And that was enough. Her story wasn't broken. Not by what Dimitri did. Not by the fall. The door opened. Layla's parents came in. They looked very tired, like they had been worried for a long time. Her mom came over fast and hugged her, gently. Her dad stayed near the door, holding it like he needed it to stay standing. Ronda stood up and moved out of the way. Layla reached out with her good arm. She let them hug her and see her. As they hugged, Ronda looked at Layla's coach. He stood up, slowly. He nodded at Ronda, a thank you he couldn't say out loud. Then he followed her into the hallway and closed the door. They stood there, under the bright lights. The air smelled like clean clothes and warm machines. All the noise from earlier had turned into quiet. "She has a long way to go," the coach said. Ronda nodded. "They all do," she said. He looked at her again. "But she's not alone." Ronda didn't say anything. She didn't need to. They shook hands. He went back into the room. Outside, almost all the cars were gone. Just a few trucks stayed, engines running. The city beyond kept moving like nothing had happened. Cars drove by, not knowing about what happened inside. Ronda walked to her car. Her boots tapped on the ground. She didn't rush. When she got to the car, she put her hand on the door but didn't open it right away. She looked back at the arena. The arena was big and dark now. The bright lights were off. The show was over. Inside, Dimitri was being taken away with guards. His face was still covered. His future was unsure. Somewhere else, people were wiping blood off the mat, trying to write what would be said tomorrow. But none of that really mattered. Something had changed. The fight that was supposed to be a show became something real. A mirror. And people looked in it. Then, a door opened behind her. Layla stepped outside. She wore soft clothes. Her arm was still in a brace. She walked slowly, carefully. Her parents were right behind her. Her coach walked beside her, not too close, just enough to help. When Layla saw Ronda, she stopped. Ronda turned to face her. Layla smiled. It was small. It looked a little scared, but it was real. Ronda smiled back. They didn't say anything. They didn't have to. Layla was standing. That meant everything. Ronda opened her car door, sat down, and turned on the engine. The sound was soft. She backed out slowly. Her headlights made long shadows behind her. She turned onto the road. The city lights blinked ahead. But in the car, it was quiet. She didn't play music. Her mind was calm. Her breathing was slow. The road was long and open, under the stars. Tonight wasn't about winning. It was about standing up for Layla. For every girl watching. For the truth that fighting isn't about being stronger. It's about knowing when to use strength and when to hold it back. The city faded behind her. The arena disappeared into the night. Ronda drove on. Not toward another fight, but toward something better. A promise kept. And peace at last. Did you enjoy the story? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below. If you had a great time, don't forget to hit subscribe and ring the bell so you're always in the loop for the next adventure. Thanks for joining me, and as always, stay curious, stay brave, and keep exploring.